New for 96. With your hosts, Kevin McCauley and Chris Nguyen.
That should be your intro.
That is our signature cue.
That is. You can't do that with a LaCroix as successfully, unfortunately, but we'll just, in place, dub that in for you.
Perfect.
We should seek out Glenlivet for a sponsorship.
Yeah, we should.
We've consumed gallons. Like
Since Wednesday.
Yeah. Podcast per gallon. Yeah, it's a 3/4 liter. I think that I always get.
Mm-hmm.
I've been looking for a barrel size at Costco and have been unsuccessful thus far. But they do sell a full liter, but I feel like it won't fit in my cabinet.
Oh, really?
It makes it bow.
Oh.
So
You've tried.
yeah, I've tried.
Sometimes we get the full liter.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Here's a little piece of trivia. The cabinets where the bottles sit, I designed that to fit like my tallest bottle, which would be a 3/4 liter Glenlivet bottle.
Wow.
So that's why the height is the way it is there.
Fascinating.
Indeed. And back to you, Kevin.
Oh, yes.
Anyways,
Yes.
welcome to another episode of New for 96. We're usually a little too happy.
Yeah.
We usually go down tempo.
Well, usually
with that.
it gets
Yeah.
more depressed
Yeah.
each time.
Yeah, but we have a guest on our show,
Yes.
Dave Russell.
Yes. Welcome, Dave.
Yes,
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll give you a bit of an intro. Dave and I used to do track days together, and he advanced well beyond my skill level. And then he did what he normally does, which is he mastered something and then immediately quit it cold turkey with no regrets. And then now you build Datsuns and exercise and CrossFit.
Yep. I try to master one thing and then move on to the next.
Yeah. You
never
go
look back.
way overboard.
Yes.
Insanely invested in it. Yeah. So you had the 350Z when I had one, and that's how we met, because we're like, oh, we have the same car, we should be friends.
Yes.
And
Pre or post facelift?
well, that's a deep question, because there was two minor facelifts. I mean, if you
Okay.
count the
So
06 was its own year because it had a different hood, and it had the facelift, but it had the old hood.
Okay.
And then 07 had different engine
Yeah.
and a new domed hood, and it still had the facelift.
Rhino hood.
The Rhino hood.
I only know it by way of the headlamps. The projectors are different.
Oh, yeah.
The tiny versus the dilated.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the dilated were the later ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I had the last year, so
Okay. Which would be, what was the last year?
08.
08? Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense because, the 370Z was 09 because I had a coworker who bought one. And then when he sold it last year, they're still selling it.
Yeah.
The same car. So he
incredible.
could have, for the same price, if not more, actually.
Dave's dad had one. So when we were doing track days in our 350s, his dad got a 370, right?
Yeah, he did. So he actually started off in a WRX.
Okay.
While I had the 350Z.
Yeah.
And then I was doing better than him on track, so we just continuously modded it and added more and more power until it blew. And then he was like, okay, well then if Dave's got a 350, then I'll get a 370, which has a little more power.
Yeah.
And then maybe I'll get him then.
Yeah. And I always love to bring up that the 350 is better than the 370. I know we're getting really nitty gritty, but I like the 350 a lot more, and I think it's superior in every way. And I spent some time in a 370 in the Nismo.
Yeah.
And it has less cargo.
Yeah.
It feels more numb
How does it have less cargo room?
because I don't think they shortened the wheelbase. They shortened the length of the car. So they basically chopped off like where the trunk was.
Oh, interesting.
And so on the 350, you've still got that big strut bar in the trunk and everything. But there's actually a part of the trunk that's under the metal lid. So you've got the glass part, and then you can actually like put stuff back there and it's not visible.
Oh,
But the
I see.
370, all your stuff is just right on display under the glass.
Yeah.
There's no
Tonneau?
there is no non-glass space. I don't think there's a tonneau. I think the strut bar prohibits such a thing.
Yeah.
But the 370 looks worse. I mean, they made admirable efforts to reduce the weight, and they ended up like shortening the car and doing a bunch of stuff to make it like exactly the same weight. I think. Did they reduce weight?
Yeah, they reduced it a little bit.
Okay.
But
I guess they reduced it from like the 08, but I mean the 350 gained some weight throughout its life, and the 370 was shorter, but I don't know.
Yeah, I drove Thomas's once. I didn't enjoy it. I mean, it was just a little short stint, I suppose. But it was completely stock. The clutch was extremely weird.
The clutch is extremely weird on all of them.
Hinge in the middle of it.
It was
The
just,
clutch on all of them never felt right. Like I always felt like I was burning up clutch or something. It just never felt.
It wasn't natural or
intuitive to
linear.
me.
Yeah, it was just weird.
The clutches are different between the 350 and the 370, definitely.
But I never really liked either.
I didn't have the problem with the 350. The 370 I would have issues with, especially like my dad had the rev match thing turned on.
Oh,
It would just drive me bonkers.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've driven that. You know, you've probably driven it in newer cars that have that, and it
Newer
can
ones
be
are better.
Cool.
Newer ones are better, I
It can
think.
be pretty cool.
I remember, because that was the first car that came out
That
with
was.
rev match, and
Yeah.
I remember I tried that out, and it was just unnatural.
It was.
But in the 718 that we toured in LA, that was really good. Like it really truly predicted, and it was just such a smooth transition.
Yeah.
It didn't feel intrusive or awkward or getting in front of or getting in your way. But
when I drove the Speedster, it had it, and I was like, why would I want the computer to blip the throttle of like the nicest engine to rev possible?
Yeah.
But it actually is nice, like not
it just
worry
fills,
about that.
It
like
fills in the gaps basically, like where you just slightly miss.
It makes
So,
the whole experience like very smooth and fluid in a way that it's a different experience, but it's cool. It doesn't feel like it's taking away from you.
So if you turned it off, would it be harder to rev match?
It would be harder just because you're doing the rev matching. So it would be harder because you've got to think about like, okay, how hard do I hit
probably
it
just
to,
not as
to
smooth.
get to the right?
Yeah,
you wouldn't be as smooth.
Where human error comes in.
Especially when you're driving a car. I mean, I think all these technologies, it's like, oh, does it feel good on a test drive? Yes. You know what I mean? Once you're familiar with a car, like, yeah, it's a little easier. Or it's a lot easier. But when you're unfamiliar with the car relatively, the rev match is, handy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the learning process is part of the fun.
It is fun,
It is.
but I mean, you only can get so accustomed to it in just a couple days or whatever.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's different ways. I tried it on and off, and it's all good.
Yeah. I mean, it's just one of those things where, like, I think we can appreciate just completely manual everything type of driving experiences. But then I've eased up on the like tech is bad, and I'm kind of I'm open to the idea now of many things that I wasn't in the past, like double clutch transmissions. We just had on our last episode, we were discussing the merits of and whether it was a good or a bad thing. That basically every car is moving that way.
Well, and actually, I was researching, and the Supra is not even a DCT.
Really?
It's an automatic.
Okay.
So there's really no reason for them to not offer a manual.
Yeah, that is weird.
Yeah.
All right. What is it? What's in there?
It's
8-speed
a 7.
something?
It's an 8-speed automatic. I don't know who makes it or what it is.
Or if
but
it was found in something else.
In the new Supra, it's got to be BMW. They make it.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah,
Well,
you're right.
But I
Yeah,
mean, it's
of
probably
course.
like ZF makes it.
Yeah.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know. It's,
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah, it's
but
just
BMW's.
automatic.
Yeah, you're right. Okay. Yeah, I guess that would make sense actually.
Yeah.
I'd be curious if it was something different from the Z4. But
I don't think it is.
we'll get our fact checkers on that, and
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the same one in the Z4. Like they.
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you buy a Supra, do you take it to a BMW dealership to get it serviced?
I
We'll have
wonder.
to
If,
ask
yeah,
Richard.
right. That'd be interesting.
We'll ask Richard.
Yeah.
Your friend. So you have a friend. We're not going to go too much into this, but you
So he's bought
mentioned casually something to me today about the Lexus LFA that I did not know.
Yeah, so I have a friend who works for Toyota at some level. I don't know anymore where he's at. But there's a guy that manages, I believe, all the LFAs in the U.S. And
Wow.
he's like the one touch point for anybody that has an LFA.
Oh wow.
And the Lexus will service them to pretty much suit anything that you want. So like they have there's one of them that's been 5 different colors.
Oh wow!
So when they change hands, it's like, oh, I don't want a silver one, I want it red, and so Lexus will go get it and paint it red for them. And I believe it's like free of charge. It's just like part of the service.
Oh really?
Yeah, because I was talking about the McLaren F1.
I was going to say this is very McLaren.
Yeah, it's very McLaren, and how McLaren, you send your, of course, that is the opposite of free. It's many millions of dollars, but you send your car to McLaren, and they like will retrim it, and you pick it like from new, and you're like, oh yeah, like just like the LFA, and they do it free. I was like, what? That's crazy.
I could be wrong, but that's how I remembered it.
That would be crazy.
That would be really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like there's
it's a completely different tier. I mean,
it's a different tier, and there's only so many, and 95% of them are not going to want to change it from the original spec.
That is
so
true.
It's not like you're getting like a CarMax warranty scam here.
Yeah.
Do this one trick to get a free red LFA paint job.
That's very cool. So does he? I guess he flies out to wherever the car is.
Yes, he does.
Basically, okay.
Yeah. And he keeps track of where they're all at.
Yeah. That's a lot better than McLaren, because I think basically you have to ship your car, say for instance, to a racetrack to get the tires balanced. Included with that would be like an entire like team related to a track environment. Well, that's very cool. Have you ever driven an LFA?
No, I would love to.
Yeah.
So I work right across the street from the at Frito-Lay. From the Toyota headquarters. And so I've always just wanted to go over there and say, hey, let me drive an LFA.
Yeah.
They have a like secret racetrack in the North Dallas area. It's not there.
Yes.
It's not there. It's north. It's like near.
It's in the Denton area.
Denton area. Yeah, I found it on the map, and it's like in the middle of a neighborhood.
I think it's technically a house, and they have a racetrack on it.
Oh, okay. Isn't MSR Crescent? That's a racetrack. Isn't that a country club or something? It has some weird tax exemption.
So I know that Driveway Austin is technically a driveway.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
That's they were telling that story, or maybe that was on the DWA podcast, but they had interviewed the owner who was talking about it's a driveway because they technically couldn't open a track, so it's just a very interestingly shaped driveway.
Yeah, just like Goodwood.
Yeah,
Lord March.
Yep. And did you happen to make it down to Radwood Austin?
I didn't know. I was planning on doing it, and then we saw the weather might be bad, so I decided not to
Richard
go.
should have brought the MR2.
But it was just going to be me going. But yeah, that would have been awesome if you brought the MR2.
So his friend also has. They used to. You drove the MR2 around the track a bunch, right?
Yeah. So I helped build
You
that
helped
car.
develop it. So it's like an MR2 with basically like a modern Camry engine.
Yeah. So
interesting.
We dropped the 3.5 in it originally, and then he did a lot of suspension work on it also. But the modern iteration, it's a completely different car now. So he's taken that 3.5, and then I think he stroked it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow!
Put cams on it, and so it is, and then increased the rev to like 7,200 or 7,300.
That's crazy, and it's stock at 300 or.
That engine's like around like 310 or 12 or something.
We're estimating about 400 now.
Wow.
It is an amazing vehicle.
And you sorted out the handling because you said out of the box it was pretty messy. And so this car was like taken down and rebuilt. Like you guys took it down and rebuilt the whole thing with like new old stock.
Yeah, when I was there when he picked it up from the guy. So we went over to this guy's house with the trailer. And it was a rolling chassis. There was nothing in it. There was no engine or anything. And all the body parts were off the car. I mean...
Which gen is this?
It's the second gen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like a 90...
91, 92, something like that. And so it had this interesting collection of Japanese parts and American parts so that he had it, like the taillights were Japanese spec and some of the side moldings were Japanese spec. So it was like this cool combination of all the different parts of the MR2 that he liked.
And the interior, because I've seen the car, and the interior
it's immaculate.
New old stock stuff. Ooh. Like all these parts came out of a box, so it looks like it's like your Celsior, where the inside is just brand new.
So since he works for Toyota, he has the catalog of all the parts and then the inventory, so he can go and get all the parts that he wanted brand new from Toyota.
Very cool. And I appreciate the brand linearity by putting a modern Camry engine instead of like putting an LS or something in there.
So the funny thing is like when we dropped it in, it fit perfectly. Yeah. And then when we started routing the hoses like from the coolant, like the hose fit perfectly from the stock MR2. Like everything, it was amazing how modular the stuff was that just automatically plugged in.
Yeah.
That's how Toyota works.
They find perfection and they just kind of stick with it.
I have a friend from high school, or like an acquaintance, and he had that generation MR2, and it was a turbo. I drove it as a turbo briefly a long time ago, and then he took the engine out and he was going to put in. It's called the Beams engine, and it's like a high revving 2-liter 4. And so it makes about the same horsepower, but without all the complexity and weight and everything of the turbo. Anyway, the car.
Where is it? What's the Beams engine from?
I think it was from like high. I don't remember exactly. It was like weird like things that we didn't get, like a 98 Levin or something had this. Like it was in things. I don't think we got any form of the cars that it came into, but it was interesting, and I think the car was lost in Harvey though.
Oh, well then.
So it never got finished. Like it was like a perennial project, and then like, oh, there it goes.
Yeah. Well, that's a shame.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very cool. So this is the car's still around. It's
still there. Yeah. He tracked it up until he quit about the same time I quit tracking.
Okay.
And he doesn't know what to do with the car because the amount of money he has
as a road car.
Yeah, actually, it's a great road car. He just needs to put AC back in, and it'll be perfect.
Yeah.
But he's got a lot of money invested into it, obviously.
Yeah.
And so the audience that wants to buy something like that is so small. And if you think of using a MR2 as a track car, I mean, it's a tiny audience that would want something like that and actually think it would be good at the track.
Right.
They have no idea how many hours of development he has in the suspension to make it even better on track.
Yeah.
And then like the time in the engine and everything. I mean, it is. If I was in the need for another track car, I would buy it to replace my, the 350Z that I had.
Yeah, and you had a lot of trouble selling your Z.
Oh man, that was awful.
No one wants everyone wants to build their own track car, and they don't know that it's going to cost you so much. And obviously, when you tune a car, you're not going to get the money back.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was like this car, like no one wanted it, and I think Bring a Trailer was like, maybe if you did no reserve, and you're like, no thanks.
So the hang up that I heard the most, I asked the local forum, why isn't it selling? And they said it's because you have a half cage, so it's half race car, because I don't have the front bit. It's not a full roll cage.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't have AC. So you're in this weird half world where we can't drive it to the track because it doesn't have AC, but it's not a full race car, so we can't take it to go race wheel to wheel. So you're in this weird half world. And I was like, well, it was perfect for HPDE, the stuff I was
for
doing.
Exactly what you were doing.
And you were done. You're like, I am not putting another ounce of energy or money or effort into it. Like, I'm not putting AC in. I'm not like, you were just like, no.
So the funny story about the car is that the guy eventually bought it, who lives in Atlanta, still tracks it, and then he sends me pictures from the track every once in a while through Instagram.
That's so cool.
Oh, that's cool.
We keep up, and he's sent me messages through Instagram like, did you have this problem where you're driving it? Like he experienced ice mode, like when you hit the brakes, and the brakes don't do anything, they just get rock hard. So the brake pedal gets rock hard, but you get no braking actuation from the brake pad. And so you have to let go of the brake and then reapply it, and it works. But he was like, have you experienced that? I was like, yeah, I had it once or twice, and we talked about it, so he knows what to do now. But
wow.
Yeah, he keeps asking me questions. It's awesome.
That's cool. You initially had a big brake kit at one point, and you just described it like very nonchalantly. You're like, yeah, I have to, on the straightaway, I have to tap the brake while like with your left foot to seat the caliper pistons because they would be like so far recessed. So you would
So what happens is the rotor has more play than the caliper does. So the rotor knocks the pads back.
Oh, interesting.
Away from the rotor. So when you apply the brake, you're just closing the gap between the pads and the rotor.
Yeah.
And then you have to hit it again for it to actually do anything.
Oh, wow.
So it's like a lot of work. And when you're thinking about other things, like that seems stressful. But then you switch to the Brembo setup, which is what I had.
It worked better.
It did.
And then what actually helped the most was replacing the wheel bearings and the front wheels.
Oh, yeah.
That was adding a lot of play that it didn't need.
Yeah.
Oh,
I had to do that too.
Yeah.
At one point. That's crazy. I had so many heat. I had a lot of heat brake issues with the car. With just getting heat. I had like titanium shims and steel lines and all that. All the stuff everything I could do. But it was fun. We had a good time.
Yeah, what fixed that actually was the brake ducting. So,
Really?
Yep.
There's nowhere to duct on the car. Like there's not like, well, I mean, I guess you put it in the front, but there's not like a lot of like inlets. Like most cars have a lot of intakes and scoops and grills, and the Z has just one rectangular opening.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to be like Dave and cut holes in your bumper, which that came out really good.
Did you? So the guy that bought my car let somebody drive it at Road America, and the guy put it into a barrier.
What?
No.
And he had to get the front bumper replaced, so it's got a new front bumper on it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man.
No more holes.
No more holes. So it looks normal now.
There you go.
Mine had, when I met you, I think I had the that like intake scoop. I had like that carbon fiber scoop on one side of the front because my bumper was already messed up, and so I was like, so I did cut a hole to put that in, and then like you rivet it in, and then I had to get a new bumper because of a I-45 tire flying incident.
Yeah.
And so they're like, do you want us to like put this back in? I was like, no, that's okay. It was nice having a car with a brand new front bumper.
Yeah.
It's such a rare thing.
That is nice. That happened on the Cayman. Well, it wasn't brand new front bumper.
The new paint, new spray.
New spray, and I got to remove the plate holes, which is nice.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's nice.
Yeah, because for some reason the Porsche bracket requires 4 screws, and so you have 4 holes, and it's just I just kept before I did that, I just kept the bracket on because it just looked horrible with 4 holes in it.
Yeah.
But there you go.
When I went to go pick up the plates for the 350Z, they were like, "Oh yeah, we'll put that on for you." I was like, "No, you're not.
Yeah.
Give me the plates."
Yeah, I guess you do have to stop the dealer because maybe they're required to put the bracket on, otherwise. Whatever.
Or I think for most people, they get there and they're like, well, how am I supposed to put my plate on now?
Yeah.
You know, like I think for most normies, they're like, oh yeah, I want to comply with the law.
Yeah, somehow my wagon did not. It was purchased here or in the Woodlands, and the guy must have, the original owner, it was one owner, he must have told them not to because it is a fresh bumper, no paintwork. So that actually sold it for me.
That's
a little bit, yeah. So, all right.
Very good.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about your track experience, but you drove. We drove with our Z's. We were at one time competitive with one another.
Correct, yes.
We were, and then you.
I kept going and you stopped.
You kept going and I stopped, and but yeah, you were very good, and then you became an instructor with various schools, mostly Driver's Edge, right?
Yeah, driver's edge 90% of the time.
Yeah, so you drove around all the tracks in Texas instructing people, and do you have any horror stories from students, bad experiences?
So plenty of those. And there's like different buckets for bad students. Like you have the ones that don't listen, and you have the ones that are just terrible drivers and they can't do anything about it. Mm-hmm. And so you're just like along for the ride.
Yeah.
I remember I had it was a dean for one of the schools. So he was high up. He had a lot of ego. Hopped in the car. It was a wet day at Texas World Speedway. And as we're doing our instructor meeting at the very beginning, it was like, nobody spin on the outlap. You just have them drive really slow. You know, it's going to be wet. Have them feel it out. We're like, okay, yeah, no problem. And so we get through, we're driving clockwise, so it's backwards TWS, right?
Yeah.
We go through turn 7, which is like the fastest turn there other than turn 1. It's a crazy.
It's pretty blind too, right?
There's a lot of camber, so you can really go fast through it. And it's just a cool turn. Anyways, we're going through it, and he gets a wild hair up his butt. He just mashes the throttle without anybody knowing it. It's on the warm-up lap. You're not even supposed to be going fast. It's yellow flags and everything. We loop it, spin it right into the mud, and get stuck, and we have to get towed out.
Oh,
and
man.
so we immediately, this is the first session, the first day of first everything.
Oh my God.
So they have to stop the session, go get the tow truck, and to pull it out. And the guy's like, "Where's your tow hook?" And the guy's like, "What's a tow hook?"
Oh, no. What group was this in?
This was it was blue.
Oh, okay, yeah, because if he was green, you would have been driving.
I would have been driving.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
And so it was like the next day when we went back to the driver's meeting or the instructor's meeting, I got yelled at, like by everybody there. You screwed up our session.
Oh man.
They all know it was me. But I had no control.
That's a scary track. The first time I drove at TWS, my instructor was like, "Can you we're on the pit lane. He's like, could you pull over?" And he threw up out of the side of my car.
Did you really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm not that proud because I imagine my driving was not smooth at all. He was like, why don't you try not shifting at all?
Yeah.
Do a lap just in third. I was like, okay.
The funnest thing to do, though, is give rides. I think even as an instructor, as an advanced student.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you were doing this, like when I quit, I would come and visit you and get a ride. And
yeah.
I mean, once you had the cage, I felt a lot better because when you had no cage and you were that fast on slicks, because you were on like sticky tires, we'll say. I was like, this is happening too fast for my brain to process. I was like, I know what a car should do through this corner, and we're going 40% more than that. And I was like, and also you would come out of the pits because like I'm thinking specifically like one time at like Harris Hill, and you're like, yeah, these tires heat up pretty instantly, so there's no sense like pussyfooting around. So like turn 2, you're just on it, and it's like sticking, and I'm like just the visual sensation of how fast the corners are coming and how fast we're moving through them. For me, it's like we're going too fast. We're on the edge of control, and if something were to happen, like I don't have the reaction time to save it. Therefore, you don't, which is not true. Your brain is used to this. You're accustomed, and you're able to process this and react in a way that is not perceptible to me.
Correct.
And so I was freaking out, like we're gonna roll, and then I'm gonna be like crushed in this seat.
And to your defense, I think at that point you'd already stopped and already continued on for another couple of years. So.
Yeah. Well, by the time you had continued and you had the cage, that was after I'd stopped. But this was a time when we were at Harris Hill and we had our cars, and you had brought your tires, and I had my stock.
Oh, I had my little tire trailer.
You had your tire trailer, and I had my stock Z. Yeah. You went from driving to racetracks across Texas to bringing a trailer on the back of your Z on a trailer hitch with tires to having a
full-blown
pickup truck with a trailer with a car on a trailer,
were set up,
ready to go.
Yeah.
My favorite part was actually at the end there was towing the car, not actually driving it.
Ha.
I just felt cool in my pickup truck with the race car behind me.
Yeah.
I liked that part.
We were both like at opposite ends of a snowstorm. You had the tire trailer driving through that ice storm, right?
Were you at that event?
No, I was driving from Denton.
Oh, yeah.
I was going the other way. Yes. I was in the 370Z.
I got stuck at Corsicana.
Yeah, I stopped in Corsicana.
I didn't know that. Okay.
I stopped right around there or something, and I almost got stuck in a parking space because of ice. Anyway.
My car and trailer literally froze to the road because the ice had gone over the tire, and then it froze everything, and it was solid.
Yeah. North Texas has some weird weather, man.
Yeah.
I mean, we have persistent humidity and heat for 11 months out of the year.
Yeah.
But, we don't get snow.
We do not get snow.
It was more ice than snow, though.
It was the ice. It was bad. I became very aware of...
Texas just comes to a halt if there is ice of any kind.
Well, you think I-45, you think, like, how many bridges do you really cross on 45 in that stretch between Dallas and Houston? It turns out a lot because you have like, they freeze over. Yeah. And you're like, oh,
the signs, they're real.
Yeah.
Like, they're telling the truth.
It is true. It's true. You have any more bad students?
Yeah, so I remember there was a Chin event, I think it was, and I had a student where we went out, just the same thing. Like, you go out immediately on track, and he's gunning it, and then he throws it in neutral as he's going to a turn. And I was like, no, you need to be in a gear.
Yeah.
It's always good to be in a gear. And then so he goes in the next straight.
Did he use my trick? Did he use the handbrake to stop faster?
He should have. No. And then the next turn, he throws in a neutral. I'm like, dude, you got to stop doing that.
Yeah.
You're going to kill us. And I try to explain, like you should always be in a gear. You should have, that's how you keep
momentum.
Control of the car.
Yeah.
What were you in? What was his car?
It was a FRS.
Okay. Yeah. So Dave, when you're instructing people, they kind of match you with someone who has a similar car.
Yeah.
And people just stopped tracking Zs after a couple of years, and then everyone had FRSs, and so it's like, well, Dave, you get the FRS.
It's like
so it's like, oh, like you want me to instruct the guy with the 911 turbo? No, this guy with the FRS, he needs your help. It'll be more on your level.
Yeah.
It's similar. It's Japanese.
Yeah.
So luckily at the end of that session, I went and talked to another instructor. I was like, hey, can we switch?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. And luckily it all worked out, and they worked better as a team.
Yeah.
I had a really fun guy. So
oh, there you go.
It worked out. But yes, and then I remember there was a time where I went with a kid with 350Z. It was green, and then he was actually pretty fast, and we were doing pretty good. But he had these like Fisher Price 4-point harness, so it was like the cheesiest 4-point harness. And it was rising up as we go through the turn, and it was like a bra at one point. It would just cover my boobs.
Yeah.
And then so we pull into the pits, and I grab the guy that runs the grid area. I was like, hey, Dean, this is a problem. He was like, what? And he comes over and he looks at the car and he sees the Fisher Price. And he's like, oh, there's a 3-point harness right there. He pulls out his knife.
You said it was zip tie.
Yeah, he pulls out his knife and cuts the zip tie on the 3-point harness. And he was like, there you go, Dave. He didn't even ask the student. He just did it.
That's funny.
We kept going.
Yeah. I mean, it was probably best that he changed that anyway.
Yes. Yeah. The 3-point was so much safer than that
weird
janky 4-point you had.
Well, 4 is more than 3, so that's probably what sold out.
4 points is that like because the appeal of a harness, which I learned from Dave, is that it pins you in the seat and you can drive much faster if you're not using your muscles to hold yourself in the car.
Yeah.
And conversely, if you don't have a roll bar and you were to flip a car and you're in a 4-point, you might snap your neck if the roof caves in, which it will. Yeah. So it's like it's a safety thing. I mean, and you eventually had a roll bar, and we had the Schroth like a anti-submarine belt that's supposed to it's supposed to in a hard impact like break away and basically serve as like a 3-point.
Yeah.
But in essence.
Yeah, but you still have to get the harness right around your waist.
Yeah, that's the most important part.
Yeah, so if it rides up at all, then you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So that's the most important part.
Yeah. So
and then I ended up getting the 6-point at some point, and that was like a game changer.
Really?
Yeah, it's like being on a what are those roller coaster ride where your feet are hanging off the edge, type thing. Because you could do that. You could literally be in a braking zone. You feel like you're just free floating, and the harness
it's like
is
zero
holding
G.
you. Yeah.
Oh wow.
And you can feel the harness just holding you in. That's all that's holding you in.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of just lightly gripping the steering wheel and kind of touching the pedals, but you're just hanging from the seat.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's pretty neat.
Very cool.
So you were telling me you went to Spartanburg for a BMW delivery pickup for a friend's car.
Yeah, we went and picked up his M235i that he had spec'd, and he had had an extra ticket, so they give him 2 tickets to do this.
Yeah.
This thing, I was like, hey, my wife doesn't want to go. Do you want to go? And I was like, heck yeah, let's go check that out.
Yeah.
And it was a free flight too.
So, yeah, so
That's
they
pretty cool.
pay
Yeah,
for
that
your
Euro
flight,
delivery.
they pay for your food, everything, and hotel
Oh, I
room.
didn't know that. Yeah, I thought it was just tickets.
It's all free, and so we showed up, and they brought out the red carpet. It was a lot of fun.
That's very cool.
They take you to the performance driving center that they have.
Yeah.
And so they have an instructor drive you around on an M3 and do crazy stunts and all sorts of stuff. And then at some point you switch over and they give you a car that's similar to the one that you're going to be driving, that you own.
Yeah.
And then you can do some of their little tracks that they have.
Yeah.
And they teach you how to drive your car. It's actually really
That is very
idea.
cool. Yeah.
So there were a lot of older people that had no idea how to drive performance cars. And so they got an opportunity to learn how to drive, not at the edge, but more than they would on the street.
Sure. Yeah.
You said you had this like instructor who was
Yeah, I had this.
he was like this unassuming like heavy set 70-year-old guy
who just looked like he didn't give a crap about anything in the world.
Yeah.
And so we were asking him, so what did you do? How did you get this job? He was like, oh, I used to race a lot. And so they just asked me to, come instruct for him. I was like, yeah, whatever. Sounds like a good retirement job. And so we get in the M3, it's a 4-door. And so immediately he just smokes the tires right off the bat. And then we go into a full sideways drift.
Yeah.
And he's just got 2 fingers on the wheel and he's talking to us, in the sideways drift. And he's just like, whatever. And then he goes straight and he just continues to smoke the tires going straight. I was like, it was just an amazing experience.
And you don't remember if it was an M3 or an M4 or
I actually don't.
It was the new gen. It was the current.
Yeah, that was it was like a couple years. No, it was more than that. Yeah. It was man, I can't remember when it was.
But if it was an E90, you would remember.
It was not an E90.
Okay, well then it was the new one.
It was an F something.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay, that's very cool. Very cool. There's one shared experience. I have a note about GT3, but the shared experience we have is a friend at the track had a yellow 996 GT3, and he let each of us drive it And like he just gave us the keys and was like, yeah, you go out and, you know, drive the car. And
I seriously considering buying that car before he did. Did you know that?
no.
Oh wow.
So there was a
Best GT3.
yeah, the previous owner of that car was a track guy also. And then
Yeah, I remember it was that old guy who was very slow.
super old guy.
He was really slow.
And so Bruce, the guy who ended up buying it, told me that it was for sale, and I was like, shoot, that's a really good price for a GT3.
What was
Yeah.
the price? Do you
It was
remember?
$50,000.
That is really good.
Yeah, that's a good price.
And I was like, man, I was really, you know, like, because I was so deep into tracking at that time, I was like,
Yeah.
I would have no problem selling the Z and whatever else I could to get that.
Right.
And
You could not buy that level of performance for $50,000.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I pinged a bunch of friends that had GT3s, you know, like that were at the track, and you know, they told me all the pitfalls and what to look out for and all that stuff. And I was prepared to buy the car, but I wasn't prepared for the maintenance and everything else that went on with it. I just didn't
It's
financially.
fun.
I
Come
couldn't
on
do
in.
that.
The water's fine.
Yeah.
So they scared me off, and then so the guy that ended up letting us driving it for parade laps, that was the same car.
Yeah, I remember
cool.
that. It was awesome. I mean, that was a real experience. That like made me like, okay, I'm into Porsches. Like that
That was the experience.
That really was like that. It was something so special about it.
And how long ago was that?
I mean, that was probably like 2011 or something like that.
Okay.
I just loved driving it. I still remember the throttle pedal being so precise and just incremental and interesting.
All the pedals were very different from any other car I've ever driven. Like,
Yeah,
And the
yeah.
brake pedal was extremely stiff. There was no play at all.
Yeah, and and on that one, and I've never experienced this in another GT3 or another 911, when you stepped on the gas, the nose just rose like this, like it was like you could just see more sky.
Yeah.
I mean, it was noticeable,
Yeah.
right? It was crazy, and even the 997 GT3 didn't do that.
Yeah.
And I had never driven a 911 before that. And for me, it felt like the front steering wheels were just a suggestion at that point.
Yeah, yeah.
It
Well,
was
especially
like-
on power. On
Yeah.
power, it
It
really
gets
did.
light
Like it gets
as-
really
yeah.
light.
That's cool though.
And they kind of worked that out of later cars. But it's cool on this. Actually, I found out something very interesting about the 996 GT3 recently. When I was researching for my article about the new ones, I was like, you know, looking at whatever. This was according to Wikipedia, so it's probably BS. But the crankcase, which is like the most basic, lowest part of the engine,
Right.
is like a carryover part from a 964. Like it has a 964 stamping in it. And then on later GT3s, they like eventually like took off some non-necessary things for a water cooled, but it works. And I mentioned this to Jules, our friend, and he's like, oh yeah, he's like, that explains why people sometimes put like a GT3 crank into like a Carrera.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
it fits. Because it's all like
It's just all linear.
yeah,
Which is crazy.
It's so crazy. So I thought that was very cool, but it might not be true. Anyway,
That'd be very Porsche though. I mean, like just the carryover basically from generation to generation to generation.
Right.
Basically up until the 996
and like
was,
the frugality of like, well, we don't need to change this, so we're
Yeah.
gonna keep it going. And that's like with the as we heard from our friend Marvin on the tour, that's like the left-hand ignition.
Yep.
It was a frugal. It was
it's just a wire. It's a shorter wire. That's it. No Le Mans like romance story there. So
He's like frugal, never stingy. That's different.
yeah.
I'd like to mention my Datsun also has left-hand.
Oh, key is on the left, bruh.
Well then.
Tell us about your Datsun.
Yeah.
So yeah, I when I realized I was done with the racing thing, my friends asked
And
me.
you were done. Like by the time you told me, you're like, yeah.
It had been a year, yeah.
Yeah.
And so they were like, "Well, what are you gonna do next?" And I was like, "Oh, what's next?" Yeah, I didn't have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
And so I actually watched it was the Petrolicious video of a Datsun 1600. Have you seen that? It's
I
a
don't
fantastic
know.
video. So the guy drove around the
link to
United
it.
States,
Okay. Wow.
and in a 1600, I can't even imagine doing it now.
I have driven
now that I
your
own
car.
it.
I cannot imagine doing that. Your car feels like when people say something feels like a go-kart, they mean it as like a term of adulation, like it turns like a go-kart. I mean it feels like you were in a go-kart on a road with normal-sized cars.
Yes, it is terrifying.
Yes.
Especially in the beginning. Now that I've done it for I think 2 or 3 years, it's less terrifying.
Yeah.
But I've ratcheted that up recently. So, but anyways, I watched the
summer?
Petrolicious. Huh?
You drive in the summer?
I did up until recently. Yeah.
Okay,
Until like July when it got to 100. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I watched the Petrolicious video and I was like, wow, that's an amazing car. And then I understand, the lineage between the Fair Lady. So it's the 1600s, the original 350Z, basically. They have lineage. I was like, oh, I like the lineage there.
Yeah.
And so I was like, there's no way I can afford something like that. So I went and looked it up, and they're dirt cheap. And I was like, well, this is a perfect match made in heaven. So I was talking with my friend who's the guy that works for Toyota. And he's like, yeah, this is a perfect car to start on because I wanted to learn how to, rebuild engines. I wanted to rebuild transmissions. I just want to know everything. It's like, it's simple tech, so you should start there instead of getting something super technical. And
Right.
So,
Right.
So yeah, that's a great idea. So we started searching, and then found some really, really bad versions that he was like, yeah, you don't even want to start there.
They're rare. There's not a lot of them out there. And then the other thing I'll add also is that what I noticed is you were with your 350Z, you liked working on it more than driving it and tinkering, and kind of like you were modifying it and changing stuff and trying to like do like aero and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And you enjoyed actually like fixing stuff and replacing stuff more than driving it. So it's like, like what about rebuilding a car?
Yeah,
like
it was a natural progression.
Next step, yeah.
Yeah, because when the racing got boring, then the working on the car, I spent more time working on the car than I did racing. And I was like, well, let's just make that the hobby instead.
Yeah.
And so we found this one that was in Alabama, actually. I had been checking Craigslist everywhere. And then I think I actually had a Google alert set up for...
There's like 3 in the country for sale at any given time, probably?
Oh, no, there's more than that.
Is there? Okay,
yeah.
There just seems so uncommon.
I mean, but they're in such bad condition usually that you don't want it, or I wouldn't want a project that big. And so we found it, and luckily I still had the truck and trailer, so we hopped in there, and it's an 11-hour drive to wherever it was in Georgia. So we went on a weekend, picked it up, and drove back. I think we probably got like 4 hours of sleep total that weekend, and started the project from there. It was an experience I wasn't expecting. I thought it was going to be one way, and it ended up being another way. But
you were able to drive it a little at first.
So yeah, when we went and test drove it, I say that with air quotes. He let us drive around the neighborhood, and when we took off, I heard a cling, 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 cling. So something fell off the car immediately when we drove off.
Good sign.
Oh God, what is this? And the brakes didn't work. The brakes were just a suggestion.
Did you say I'd like to knock 10% off the price because I just knocked 10% off the car?
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever parts back there. And so clearly the engine was toast. Yeah. Like when you popped it up, it was black. So it was just covered in oil. Yeah. And but it ran and drove technically, and the transmission was all the synchros were gone. So you really had to like grind the gears to get it in.
Yeah, I don't know what that's like.
I think we have the same transmission style.
Yeah, you mentioned that before.
The same synchro style transmission. So when he was selling me the car, he said, "Yeah, I've got an extra transmission with the car, so it'll come with it." It's like, okay, great. Well, I'm not worried about the transmission then. And so yeah, when we picked it up, it blew smoke. It was just, and it didn't drive right. The carburetors were all poorly tuned. But
did you swap that transmission in, or what did you do with it? I didn't know you had an extra.
Yeah, so I drove the car the way it was. I tuned the carburetors a little bit, but I just drove it just to see what it was like for. I think it was probably like 5 months, and then I was shifting to the third, and it finally gave up. Yeah, and just exploded. There was no more third left. Yeah. So I drove home going second to fourth, and then got it home, and then that's when I pulled the engine and the transmission and rebuilt everything.
Wow. And do you enjoy tuning carbs, or?
No, I hated it.
I was about to say, I've never met anyone who actually enjoyed it, but I thought maybe.
I enjoy it now. Yeah. But the learning curve is so steep for somebody that has no knowledge on carburetor tuning. And I can say I only understand the SU carburetor style. So like if you put name another name brand out there, a Weber. I would have no idea how to do a Weber carburetor. Yeah. That's a completely different technology. But the SU style carburetor, I understand now.
Well, it's crazy too because there's tools now. Like you were measuring the fuel mixture with your phone and tuning it based on that,
correct.
Right?
So I was getting a rough tune before just by checking the plugs, and you can mess with the piston inside of the carburetor, and you hear the engine go up, and it gets lean or it gets rich. You can hear that, and so it's an approximation. But you can buy just a regular air fuel meter you stick in your exhaust. So I made a custom exhaust, made sure to put a bung in it so I could put the air fuel ratio meter in there, and then it's plugged into an app, so I don't have a real gauge, so I don't clutter the dash any with the extra gauge, just on my phone. And then I precisely tune the carburetor with that. You still don't get left and right balance or front to rear because there's two carburetors, but you get a total, so you get an idea, and then you can check the plugs to see which one's rich or lean.
Yeah, because you're simplifying, but the engine rebuild process you said was like a nightmare because no one has. There's not a lot of parts for these cars. It's not a big aftermarket. There's not a lot of knowledge. You're kind of on your own.
Yeah, there's one guy, and he has a stranglehold on all the parts, basically. There's a couple out there, but there's one guy that has all the parts. And he's not particularly fun to deal with if you return anything. So, like, I returned some pistons. I didn't like the quality, and then it just went downhill from there.
Man.
He didn't like working with me after that. And then, but... yeah, getting the parts was a pain, and like I did some additional work, so I got some mild cams on it, and then I ended up stroking it to be a 2-liter, so it's not a 1600 anymore. It's got it's from a forklift, so they still make the engine and they still put it in forklifts.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so you can still go buy that. It's a U20.
Wow.
And, so I got the cam or the crankshaft from that, and put it in there. And then got custom pistons and all that stuff, and so it's a hot rod now.
So when you're putting the engine, go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say, like, do you think that there were any resources formed when Nissan was doing their whole Z program, whenever it was in the late 90s, like when they were selling restored Zs? Like, were they just sending them out to random restorers or specialists?
It was one restorer.
Was it one restorer?
So they sold it like in 1996. Nissan sold like a 240Z that was like restored, like new. They sold a certain number.
Oh yeah. It was part of their. It was part of an ad campaign.
Yeah.
But also, was it linked to like a new product? Was it like, I mean, obviously the Z, but
it was linked to an anniversary or something.
Something like that.
It was something like that.
Yeah, from the showroom, you could go in and buy like a restored Z.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah, so I didn't know if like they developed resources, but maybe if it was just one guy, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean that's so different from his car.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was a name that you would know, like it was like Stillen or something that did the restoration. I think.
Yeah.
But we'll include in the notes with accurate information.
Yeah. Anyways.
But yeah, so the engine rebuild process was it was way more than I was anticipating. Yeah. So finding a machine shop you trusted, that was a big issue. So like, the guy that was going to bore and clean up the block and everything.
Yeah.
I went to one guy. He spent, he left it there for 4 months or something like that, and never touched it. And I was like, okay, now I got to find another guy. I actually need this done.
Yeah.
And then so and he was the one recommended, so I had to go out on my own and find somebody on my own, which is apparently a terrifying experience.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to. I mean, you're putting thousands of dollars. You don't want to screw it up on your first shot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was terrifying. And then,
but when you're putting all this stuff back together, like, how do you? Because I talked about this with Jules about his Carrera engine. Like, how do you know it's all right? Like, you know what I mean? You know, how do you know? Like, how do you? I know you don't get trial and error. Trial and error is like 400 man hours of labor later. Like that's the error and the trial.
Right.
Like you're putting this stuff back together. It's like, what if you missed some washer or some rubber thing?
There is that chance. There is a shop manual. It's very poor shop manual. It's not like they have now. Like the modern ones, they're fantastic. But back in the day,
I have a modern one for the SC, and like the engine removal is like 4 steps. It's like step 1, disconnect hose. Step 2, remove engine.
Well, I mean modern, like after 2000, like the Nissan 350Z shop manual is fantastic.
Okay.
So, but basically you have to have tribal knowledge. So I had Richard come over and help, show me how to put the piston rings on and how to orient the pistons and then plastic gauge the bearings and all that stuff. And you end up measuring everything 3 or 4 times. And then put it together.
Hope that everything has been checked off the list. Yeah.
That's why you see when people start up engines, they're terrified because you think you've missed that one thing.
Yeah. Man.
I completely understand. Like when you see people on TV start up the engine for the first time and they're just terrified. That's how I was.
Yeah.
Oh, I bet.
As a side note, back to these technical manuals related to graphic design or just technology related to that. Do you think desktop publishing changed that? As in, like, it was just too much trouble back in the day to update a manual. Like, you would basically just have to retypeset stuff, do everything. Versus now, it's just kind of like Haynes can just edit something in an InDesign document and print a new edition. Versus back in the day, like, you'd have a manual that was the same for like 40 years, basically.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it was the same because I feel like there was more money for everything before.
Maybe.
I feel like there was more money and like the manufacturer was like, oh, we have a giant department just that updates this every year because our dealers need it to be accurate. And it's very wasteful and inefficient, but like we're going to print new books. I don't even know,
but you don't, like, the consumer doesn't really have access to manufacturer basically guides, right? Like, they have a completely different set. This is all like someone has taken apart an engine and documented it on the private party side.
It depends. I mean, you get the manufacturer ones.
Yeah.
And those are usually very good.
Yeah. That's the one I had for the 350Z. It was the Nissan factory
the official
service
Nissan one.
Yeah. I remember my friends that when we worked on Hondas in high school, it was always the Helms, and it was like the Bible. That was the that was the one, and it was amazing. And my friends would each have like their own Helms manual with like grease on all the pages and stuff. And I mean, it was like a phone book.
Yeah.
I will say that the best one I've seen, though, is Toyota. They have the best factory service manual.
Yeah.
When we were trying to diagnose all the wiring, obviously, because we had to rewire the engine for the MR2.
So you have two books?
Yeah, so he ended up making his own.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Man.
So, yeah, like everything's documented. So if somebody wanted to go figure out where a wire went, he has a book that he made.
That's incredible.
He's very detailed. This is how I learned how to build cars, was through this guy who's very detail-oriented.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first started working on the MR2 with him, he was like, yeah, can you just go do this wiring? And I just wrapped it up, just half-assed.
Yeah.
Like, no. You got to do it perfectly. So it was just like...
Yeah,
like just
spend
like
some
Japan
time.
would do it.
Yeah.
And so he taught me to learn
That's
the
cool.
process and not just rush through it and get it done.
That is very cool.
So,
go ahead.
Well, you had told me that when you did you hated doing the engine. You hated a lot of the process because you were dependent on other people.
Correct.
You said that the transmission rebuild was like a Zen-like process for you that clicked for you, and you were just like, I would do that all day.
Yeah. So the transmission is completely different because of that. I understand that, and I can do that all on my own, and it doesn't really require any additional input from anybody else. I would lay out. I had 2 folding tables that I just put all the parts out perfectly in the order that they needed to be in.
Yeah.
And then I cleaned them all up, put all the new parts in, and it was just like it's like putting a puzzle back together. It was just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And so, like, I've even offered my service for your 911 whenever you're...
I mean,
when the 915 blows?
When the 915 blows, it's going on a Prius load to Dallas.
Yeah.
How long would it take you?
If I had all the parts, a couple days.
Wow. It's amazing.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I don't want to be in this situation where I need to rebuild my transmission, but it would be fun if, like, I just came up there and we just, like, did this, like, over a weekend or something.
Yeah. It would be. Yeah, that would be a lot of fun.
And it's probably, like, sort of inevitable. Like, that it's going to need,
sure.
refreshing.
I'm sure.
Yeah, the synchro, if you have the same type of synchros I have, they will wear out. There will a point where you just wear them down and there's nothing left.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm certain, like, there's more, because I have to do second to first to prevent it from
But I think that's how it is new.
But I don't know. Like, I'm really curious. Like, a rebuilt 915, if, like, for at least a week you had non-grinding second to first, but we'll see.
It's funny because, like, so this guy Andrew from Porsche, when he drove my car in California, he owns a mid-year, which also has the 915.
Yeah.
And he was like, so he drove it on some really good roads, and I was like, "What do you think? What do you think about the transmission? How far along is a rebuild?" He's like, "No, it felt really good." The thing that he thought was a problem was like third to fourth. I was like, "What?" Like, it was like a really weird thing where
As it turns out, your transmission is far worse off than you thought it was.
Yeah, no, it was just like, oh, like that seems normal. Like that seems fine. Like, there's other things.
Third to fourth.
Yeah, maybe
Grinding?
it was second to third. I don't know.
How weird. I don't know what that would be.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Second to third went out. Well, third went out on my Probe GT.
Really?
Yeah.
So what'd you do?
What did I do?
Yeah.
I
just skipped those gears.
Yeah. Yeah.
See,
I just skipped second. I just skipped third. I mean,
yeah.
you don't need third.
No.
So it was
Not at all. Did you ever track the Probe?
I didn't, but I autocrossed it
Okay.
a number of times.
How did it do?
It was good. It was good. It was actually a good autocross car for its class of car. Not like competition class, but I mean, if you look at like the
Yeah. What was it in bed with?
No, I mean, I don't mean in competition class and autocross because I don't care about that stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, as far as like, if you're comparing to like an Integra GSR or an Eclipse or a Civic Si,
Yeah.
it had wider tires,
Yeah.
and good torque,
Had a 2.5 liter 6.
2.5 liter 6, and so yeah, it was pretty good. I did like there was one autocross where we. Basically, it was like 8 people, and we set up all the cones, and it was like the school car club thing. And we set up all the cones, and we basically got unlimited runs. So I overheated the brakes by doing like 3 runs in a row. And the brakes were like tiny. The rotors were so small.
Man. Oh, we both had 2.5 liter 6s for our first cars.
Oh wow!
Because my Saab's GM V6.
Oh, nice.
The venerable 2500.
Yeah. I'm glad I'd never tried to autocross that, because at one point the steering column snapped while driving straight on 59.
Could happen to anyone.
The steering wheel spun
What did
freely.
you do?
Nothing. It just, I think.
No, I mean, what did you do after?
Oh, I just came to a stop, and luckily didn't like veer one way or the other. So
Just in the lane?
yeah, just in the lane. And I was like, well, here we go. So Saab. That car had so many problems. I still
Wow.
love it though.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dave, can you tell us about driving on the Nürburgring? Because neither of us have.
This is true. Yes.
And that's so surprising to me that you haven't done the Nürburgring yet.
You've never been?
I mean,
I'm working on it.
you do all this cool stuff.
I've never driven the Nürburgring, so.
So put it on your bucket list. No, it was I met some friends over there. We did a week in Europe, and we started off in Germany, and then went in the northern part, ended up in Nürburgring, and then went to Spa to see Formula One.
Nice.
And when we did the Nürburgring, we had it was a what is that, VW Polo,
Okay.
3-cylinder.
Nice.
I think it maybe had 50 horsepower.
Yeah.
And
That'd be fun. Probably.
when we got to the Nürburgring, it was one of the tourist Barton days, or whatever you call it. And so we paid our $20 or euros or whatever it was. And then we still had our luggage in our back. And so 2 guys got out of the car so we could have less weight. And then one of us would go out. And it was absolutely terrifying because I got it flat to the floor, and I'm slowing down as I'm going up hills.
Yeah.
And then you have like GT2s blowing past you 100 miles an hour faster than you're going.
Yep.
And it was terrifying.
Manual?
It was a manual, yeah.
Okay.
And so I remember at one point I was going. I've never played on video games that much, so I don't know the track. So I was driving blindly, and like you would know it very well. And so as I was coming down a hill, I had underestimated like the braking distance I needed, and then I actually hit one of the curbs. I thought I was going to go off the track.
Yeah.
But the curbing was so high that it pushed my car back into the road.
Wow.
I just kept going.
Oh man.
Oh, I bet I know which corner that is. How many laps did you do?
One.
Oh, you did one? Your friends all did one?
Yeah, we did 3 laps. We each did a lap, and it took us 20 minutes a lap. So
I was going to say, what was your time?
it was like 20 minutes. So they shut down the track. I think there was like 2 hours to run at that time.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I wouldn't do it again unless I had a higher horsepower car. There's no way I would do it in something so wimpy like that again. That was terrifying.
Oh,
That's
man.
amazing.
And actually, I would have to do some sim racing to get confidence in the track.
Yeah.
Sabine Schmidt did the track in a van in like 9
or 10 minutes?
9 or
Yeah.
10,
I
something
can't
like
even
that.
imagine. Can't even imagine.
Yeah. It's crazy. But speaking of higher horsepower car, we came here today in your E90 M3
Correct?
Interlagos blue sedan
Ooh,
with a manual.
Manual too. Yeah.
Good choice.
It was like a unicorn car at this dealership.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. The dealership is called, I believe, Hot Cars with 2 T's.
Texas Hot Ride.
Texas
I've seen
Hot
it
Ride.
before.
Is it? Oh, okay.
I've seen it before.
Don't they have like
They-
rare GTs?
They
in their
have
showroom?
like several.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah, I
their
talked to the
inventory
guy.
is
Yeah, he's got 3 or
crazy.
4.
Yeah.
And then he's got he's got some crazy cars.
And he also said, like, he sold you the car, and as he's selling you the car, he's like, if you want to sell this car, sell it to me again.
Yeah, so he said, when you're ready to sell the car, bring it back to me first. I want to have first dibs on
Wow.
it.
Wow.
Yeah, he was a cool dude. I really enjoyed the experience.
It's a very cool car.
Yeah, so when I picked it up, it had 84,000 miles on it. And then, of course, I knew about the rod bearing issue, and I was just like, putting in the back of my mind, okay, at some point I might end up doing that.
Yeah.
But I assumed it had already been done because there are so many miles on the car. So the first thing I did was I went into the history of the navigation to see where this guy before me or lady or whichever, I don't know, had been before me. At the very bottom of the list was Eagles Canyon Raceway. So I knew it had been tracked at some point.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So that was kind of funny to see that,
That is
on
funny.
there.
That's
and then
cool. Have you heard they're redoing that whole track? Like I saw a presentation about the track from the new management. It's going to be legit. I think it's opening now or this fall.
They finished the small section, so they've split it off into 2 parts.
Yeah.
So they finished. It's basically all the old track without some of the really
They
bad
changed some of the corners and they changed like the pit entry and stuff.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot better now, and they changed the like I think there's more different banking and different surfacing and everything.
Well, what it looks like is it looks like a mini Coda. I mean, they put so much energy into the surface of that track. I think it's going to last a lot
That's
better.
cool.
That's good.
Yeah,
That's
so
good.
it's not just like Harris Hill where they lay down a thin ribbon of concrete or pavement.
Yeah.
They've got several layers of these different materials to help keep it from doing whatever it did before because the surface was awful there.
Yeah. No, it'll be cool. But anyway, about your M3,
Yeah, so
you just had the rod bearings done.
Yeah, so I kept the car for 2 years before doing the rod bearings because I wasn't sure if I just wanted to have the experience of a 4-liter V8 that revved to high heaven.
Yeah.
I didn't know if I would want to keep it long term, so I just put it off and it was like, I'll just let the next guy deal with it. And then I drove it for 2 years and I was like, this is so wonderful. Like, I didn't think I'd like to drive a manual all day, every day for a daily driver because I had a pickup truck before that. You know? And so it's wonderful. It's like a perfect fit for me. So I was like, okay, let's do the rod bearings. I'm game for a while.
That's cool. Yeah, because they're also now like a bargain, like under 20 easily.
I paid 20 for mine 2 years ago. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, and it's always been tempting. Rod bearings is one of those like kind of worrisome points, and like maybe I forget there were like maybe one or two other things, maybe not as catastrophic as rod bearings, but it's always been an interesting proposition because for the same price you could also get a good E46 M3.
That was my first. That was my first lot. So I was looking for a lot of those.
And 2 very different cars.
It's harder to find that in a good good condition.
Yeah, and but those are such good values now. E90 M3s, and especially like a 4-door because no one wants the 4-door. I want a 4-door.
I like the 4-door.
Yeah, and that's like.
So which do you prefer aesthetically more, the 2-door or the 4-door?
I had a 4-door E90 and I enjoyed the proportions of that car. And Kevin has opinions about the E90 too.
I think the E92. I think the coupe, the non-M coupe, looks awful. I hate the proportions of the normal one. The M3 2-door, like it looks better because it fixes the proportion because it has like that very low side still. The side still
arrow
dips down and everything.
So
but, I like the sedan a lot.
I like the sedan. I will probably always choose the sedan, like an E36. I choose a sedan, even though I don't think it looks as good as the coupe. But it's just different.
If it's like,
and it's just also, the idea of it. It's a practical car that's fast.
Yeah, I like the practicality with no drawbacks.
Yeah.
And I usually prefer a 4-door. If you can get a 4-door or 2-door, I like the 4-door, and I like the not having like giant 80-pound doors.
Yeah.
That's my biggest thing is like when you park in a spot, I don't want to have an inch gap to get out of my...
And car doors are so thick now, like on the Z.
Oh, huge.
The doors were so thick, so it's like if you open the door, it's like you have the door open like 10 inches. Well, that's enough to get the door out of the door, so that's not enough for you to get out.
It was like that with the Cayman.
Yeah.
It's different in the 911 because the doors are shorter, but it's like a little bit more forward, I guess. I don't know.
It's very forward. That you look at where that hinge is.
Yeah.
It's way ahead of the windshield.
Yeah, but also the E9, like the sedan, is just such a conscious choice. I feel like where if you just needed like a slight banner to say that I'm an enthusiast, not just some like whatever buying an M car, like almost certainly it's going to be a manual. I have no statistical backup for that, but I feel like this is a very specific choice, like a wagon.
Exactly.
Like it is a very specific choice.
Totally.
So, but yeah.
I also like that it's a sleeper car. Like nobody Nobody pays it any attention.
Yeah.
Nobody cares unless I've seen a few people look and like they're like you can tell they're an enthusiast.
Yeah.
It's like they know what it is.
The darker color kind of hides some of the M flourishes, you know, a little bit to a normal person. Not as much. You don't see the vents and flares as much and everything.
I have to say that I didn't know it when I bought it, but there are no cats on the car. So
interesting.
When you get above 3,000 RPM, it gets kind of loud.
Yeah.
So once you hear that, you're like, is that a NASCAR? Or what is that?
Yeah. Oh man, it lives where the sound lives where all BMWs like to live, just kind of right up there. But that's very cool. So
I have to grill you about one thing.
Go ahead.
The grill.
Oh,
it has black kidneys.
Perfect.
I don't think so.
No, we're not fans of that.
No.
Why don't you like the black?
Because
I heard it's a factory option too. Like it's not like
doesn't mean it's
I didn't
good.
paint it.
BMW factory also makes
Daniel Sloan
X4Ms.
also rationalizes it like that. We disapprove of it because the grill, the kidneys are basically
it's the
logo.
It's the logo. It'd be like
equivalent
changing
to the
logo to a I want a black and white. I want a blue and black propeller roundel thing.
So what do you think about the 3 colors that they put on the grill?
No, that's bad.
That's bad too, but especially bad if it's not an actual M car.
It's very aspirational.
Yeah,
you only
exactly
see it on like X5s and 5 Series.
So that must mean you really like the new BMWs with the giant grills because that's even more grill. That's like saying BMW really, really loudly.
It's not.
Well,
the chrome kidney is not about saying BMW louder. It's just about being true to the car.
Heritage,
it's how it was designed for.
Quad lights and the kidneys. And quad lights, I guess we can argue, aren't necessarily as key to the identity, but the kidneys have always been there. So
I agree with that.
I mean, I think on a new M4 or M2, when you have the black kidney, and yours is probably in between. I don't remember the exact shape. The new ones, it's not as offensive because it's like more sculptural, so the light catches it. So you still see the shape. Like there's an element of the kidney being dimensional and having depth. When you see like an E46 where they've put on black kidneys, it looks like the car is missing the grills. Like it looks like parts have fallen off.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the E90 might be somewhere in between where it's a little more dimensional, but it's still not my cup of tea.
I think it might depend on the color of the car too. So if I didn't have the Interlagos blue, I might be more willing to do the chrome accent. I just think it would stand out way too much on that blue color.
Yeah.
Okay.
And of course, by all of this, by our logic, we should really like the light up grill that was just introduced on the what was it introduced on? The X6?
I think it's the X6.
X6. So now there is a light up kidney grill.
Is there?
There or will be one. So
Like the entire thing lights up or just parts of it?
I can't tell actually how it, I guess it maybe it's silhouetted from the back or something. I don't know. I can't tell.
I don't know.
It's lit up. I don't think it's outlined like a Mercedes one,
Right.
but so I think the slats are. I don't know. It's something. It doesn't matter because it's lit up and it's dumb. But people are gonna buy it because
people are gonna buy it.
Sure.
Especially like I know, and you and I like going to California.
Yeah.
But in California, it's like there's a different mindset to the car buyer because every Mercedes has a light up grille, and like 80% of cars have vanity plates.
Yeah,
it really is crazy. Like I hate to generalize by place, but it really is kind of insane.
It is insane, and also someone pointed this out on Twitter the other day. But if you get the light up Mercedes grille, you cannot, or the badge, you cannot have. Like any of the active safety features, like it subtracts it because you can't have like auto braking, lane assist,
radar cruise,
any of that. So you're consciously choosing like the base model car, like
to get the light
up star.
That's a choice. That
is a choice. Yeah.
So. Yes. I had mentioned, I think we have time for one more thing, and I had mentioned a surprise activity segment.
My God, no.
So this is it. So because there's two of us, this will be two of you. I mean, this will be a great activity. So you remember
You
before.
won't even tell me what this is.
You remember when we played Chassis Choice?
Yes.
We have another round, but this is cross-brand. So here is the game. So you know, your car is an E90.
I do know that, yes.
Has there been any other cars with E90? If there was a car called an E90 that was not this BMW E90, you make a choice. Which is better? Which would you rather have? Now we're going to start with the Citroen C5. It's a family car produced by Citroën from March 2001 until 2017. Or
Corvette C5?
Corvette C5, or triple round chassis choice, Audi C5, which is the code name for the 1997 to 2004 A6, S6, and RS6 and all-road. That is quite the chassis choice.
You know what? Like, that is quite the chassis choice because no one actually knows anything about Citroens, but they're so insanely interesting.
I think that was a period where they weren't.
No, wait, the 90s?
No, 2001 to 2017.
Oh, yeah, no. Those were rental cars, basically, at that point, yeah. They were like the crazy, like, Blade Runner, like, cars. Boy, so wait, we're supposed to choose?
But
You choose one.
I get a RS6 in there too, you said?
I was about to say,
Yeah.
that was my favorite A6 generation.
Yeah.
Okay.
The
that would be
first
good.
one, basically. Or not the first, it's second gen. That's second gen, I think.
I don't know.
Technically, but yeah, because I was
Okay.
when I was a kid, I was in love with everything they were doing with that platform because it was the all-road. The A6 was kind of a revelation of just like discrete German
It had the
design.
very cool arch, the roof, the arch roof.
Yeah,
It's
and
very cool.
maybe now I don't know if the rear end would be deemed as frumpy, but I loved how like curvy.
No, I think
like,
the
it
rear end's
was.
the best part. I think the front end's frumpy. But anyway, it's
yeah.
fine. So,
So I do the Audi.
I do
okay.
the Audi too. Strangely
Okay.
enough, yeah.
okay. That's
I
a
would
good-
never choose an Audi otherwise.
Well, hold your words.
Oh
I
no!
had an Audi.
Did you?
You had an A4 B5.
We should have gone through
Yes.
your. Oh, that's a good one.
Well, we might visit
we
at
should-
the end.
yeah.
So this is the next chassis choice. So Audi V8.
Yes.
It was the four-door, full-size luxury sedan built by Audi in Germany from 1988 to 1993 as the
Yeah.
company's flagship model. That was codename 4C.
4C.
Yes.
So,
The other choice
Would
is
you-
the Alfa Romeo 4C.
yeah. Would you rather have
I
an
don't
Audi V8
foresee where this is going to go.
or have a 4C? I've never driven a V8. I have driven a 4C. However,
Yes.
both are probably insanely hard to work on because there are 0 parts for an Audi V8 and you have to
Rightfully.
like disassemble the 4C to work on it.
Yes.
But that's probably a better bet. I don't have any love for the Audi V8 other than that it was kind of cool.
I know it wasn't.
Did it
It was
exist?
decidedly not cool.
Doesn't Brad
I
Brad Brownell has one, right?
I think so. I don't like any Audi that is before the B5. Unless you're talking like Quattro or something. But
Quattro's good.
I don't like any Audi. Like they all look bad.
From-
They're-
I liked the 100.
No.
Really?
You're incorrect.
No. I liked the 100.
They were all somehow even more front engined.
Yeah, the overhang was immense. It was more front overhang than rear overhang.
Dave, what's your choice?
Alpha. Easy.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to have a more challenging one next.
Oh, no.
So, introduced in 1987 for the 1988 model year, the 6th generation of cars sold by Toyota under the Corolla nameplate. We're talking codename E90 or BMW E90.
You
Wait,
said this was going to be more difficult?
Yes.
wait. So what Corolla was referred to as the E90?
The 6th generation from 1987 for the 88 model year.
Wait, 87 to 88 was a
87 for 88. So
Okay.
88 model year.
That was a shit box.
Sure.
Because it was also that was the first cross where Toyota was like,
That was the first.
this is such a bad enough car that we're going to cross sell it with Geo.
Was that the first front wheel
was-
drive
Oh, was
Corolla?
it? I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was the Geo Prism. The first Geo Prism
Was
was
this
a
made
Corolla.
at Numi?
Probably. Yeah.
This was the first front wheel drive Corolla.
Was it?
I think so.
Okay.
So you would take that over the BMW E90. Both of you,
We both own them.
You
Oddly-
read me right.
Oddly, both of you have already made the chassis choice in real life
We
for the
have,
E90.
yeah.
All right. This will be more difficult.
That's what you said about the last one, though.
Yeah, but this one is a different Corolla and a different BMW. I'm not kidding. So the Toyota Corolla E30 is the 3rd generation of Toyota Corolla. I don't have the years.
That'd be pretty early, though, right? They had new
Theory.
Corollas forever.
It would be.
3rd gen. What was
Yeah.
the years?
It doesn't. I don't have the years. All right, we're gonna skip to the next one.
Fine.
The Fiat 8V or Autovu
Can I phone Blake?
is a V8 engine sports car produced by the Italian car manufacturer Fiat from 1952 to 1954. It's very beautiful.
This is unfair because you know that neither of us have knowledge of cars earlier than 1970.
Okay, well, the competition is the Audi A3 third generation, 2012 to present Type 8V.
What? Say that again.
So the current A3.
So basically, it's a choice between like a Duesenberg and
Yeah, exactly.
I
take
Golf.
50s.
Whatever.
Swoopy. I'm not talking. There's no hand crank to
I
start.
loved the new for 50 Duesenberg.
Okay, we're getting there.
Yeah. I mean, like the A3 was kind of the A3. That was the kind of weird futuristic looking one, right? With the
Current
super
one.
short. Oh, the current one.
Yeah, I like the current one.
I like the current one,
It's just
but
a little
I mean,
hatchback, though. It's just like any other.
Well,
Yeah,
there's a
it probably
sedan,
is
too.
very
It's a
car.
sedan now. We only get the sedan.
Oh yeah. We only. Oops, that was very loud.
Yeah,
We only get the sedan. No, because that this is similar to because I had rented an A-class Mercedes in Seattle just last week, and it's just so standard car. So you might as well get the special.
Fiat, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Fiat.
This is the 8V. It's actually really cool.
Ooh, that's really
yeah,
pretty.
that's easy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
duh.
so you're going to take the 8V?
All day
Yeah.
long.
I mean, I don't know. I'd take a current RS3 maybe, but that 8V is cool. All right.
Does it have SU carbs on it?
It just
Gotta
might.
check my notes.
It runs on spaghetti, so.
So, Audi. Another Audi, I'm sorry. Audi Q5.
This is like an Audi quiz. That's what this
Kind
is.
of is, yeah.
This is just how the chassis choices roll. The second generation Q5, I think it's current. It's an 80A. Or the Toyota A80 Supra, the Mark IV.
Yeah, that's an easy one too.
Okay, fine. All right. I take it you'd say the same thing.
Yeah.
You're not going with the Q5. All right.
No.
Volkswagen R32. Skyline R32.
That's actually a tougher one.
That
for
is
me.
a tough one because both are good cars.
Yeah, especially that Mark IV R32, like the first one.
So I have a general disdain for VW, so that kind of factors into it. I mean,
Okay, and you like Nissan.
and I like Nissan.
Oh,
so-
yeah, that's an easy choice for you.
Yeah.
But I really like the way the R32 looks, though.
And it sounds cool.
That's the
sounds
thing
good.
is that, like,
VR6.
I don't like VW either, but that's a special one.
It is. It
Special
really
one.
is.
Yeah.
It makes it tough. And the 32 wasn't like the best Skyline out there, right?
I mean, it was
Like,
the first.
everybody cares about the 34.
I don't.
Yeah.
The 33 somewhat. The 32,
The 32 had like all the tech and on paper as much horsepower allegedly as the later ones.
Well, they
most
all
of the
they
tech.
all had the same horsepower, right?
Yeah. But I mean, it had the
Horsepower,
tech.
I say in air quotes. What was the
Yeah.
gentleman's agreement?
Yeah.
270.
But the
Something like
32 was
that.
kind of like the most
It was the one that introduced.
it's weird to say purist, but it kind of was
Sure.
like the leanest, like the
Sure.
E36.
It was the leanest,
of
yes.
of them, and,
Sure.
and I think they're cool in that way. But yeah, I mean,
They're cool. I don't
That
know.
was the hardest one yet, and I
Yeah.
don't,
I'll go contrarian and I'll do the VW.
okay, all
I
right.
think I would too, actually.
Well, this next one,
Oh.
XJ.
XJ what?
That's for you to decide
Oh.
and me to know. Jeep Cherokee, 1984 to 2001, or
Jaguar.
Jaguar XJ.
Well, what? Yeah. Well, XJ220.
No,
Wait, but you.
Which XJ?
Your
XJ
parameters.
sedan.
Your loophole.
No.
Is enormous.
there is XJ
That
space.
you've left.
XJ
Fine.
followed by space.
I would have the-
Therefore,
I would have the Jag. Because
one?
The XJR.
okay. Well, this precludes XJRs. There was a space
What?
there. There was a
God
space.
damn it.
I'm
Fine.
sorry. There was
I
a
would
space.
still have like you know what? I'd have like a first gen XJ, they're very classy with the quad lights and etc. I would have that over an XJ Jeep because I would not own a Jeep.
What's the Project 8? Is that an XJ?
That is not.
Dang it.
XJ is the sedan from up to now, but the
Yeah, it's always
four-door.
been the flagship sedan.
Yeah.
It's so classy. Like
It is classy.
It's just classy. Jeeps are fine.
Do I have to work on it myself? Then I would probably get the Jeep.
You can do what you want.
Oh,
All right. Is that your final answers?
I'm gonna go with the Jag.
I'm gonna go with the Jeep.
Okay. This one's my favorite.
How long does this go?
There's only 12 more.
Excellent. Everyone is just
We're
tuned out.
talking 952.
Okay.
That is the type number for the Alfa Romeo Giulia or Porsche 952.
Okay.
Do you know what that is?
The Cayenne?
No.
What?
It is the right-hand drive 944 turbo. The 951 is the 952 in England.
What the fuck?
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
Julia for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this one will stump you. BMW G30. It's the current 5 Series. Or the 1975 to 1977 Toyota Century G30.
2nd century.
Okay, fine.
All day long.
Yeah,
All
those
right.
are cool.
Those are cool, and the new 5 Series is trash.
This one's going to stump you.
God, it really does go on.
Ferrari F40
Uh-huh.
or the BMW 1 Series F40. That's the 2019 to present front-wheel drive 1 Series.
I mean, all right, this is the end of the quiz. I'm pulling the plug
There's
now.
literally one more left.
Jesus.
All right. S202. So the WRX STI S202 was the ultimate bug-eye WRX that we didn't get here. It was a track special, Japan only, extremely cool. It was also the C-Class Mercedes Estate from 1993 to 2000.
That one did not look very nice.
No.
I love my wagons, but they added curves to that, and it
Where they shouldn't be.
yeah, like you know how like I think a wagon should basically almost have like a 45
Yes.
whatever angle at the end. This was like blue,
Oh yeah, I remember when
like a Roadmaster.
It worked on the Oval Taurus.
Yep. It's quite the radius.
Yes.
Wait, what was the original?
The WRX STI
oh, yeah.
S202. It was very cool.
That's very cool. Yeah.
So my dad had the bug eye, and I'm a big
Yeah.
fan of it.
Yeah.
You know, last year, a couple years ago, actually, I've got 2 chassis choices here. When I was shooting the RS3 for Audi, I was in LA, and we went to this weird place to get the cars, and there was like a random WRC STI in this like warehouse and a right-hand drive S202 in like the color called cashmere yellow, which is extremely cool. It's kind of like pale yellow. Anyway, that is all. So that was the chassis choice.
Amazing.
Thank you for playing.
Thank you.
That was a very long game.
It was great.
It was fine.
We'll cut out some of those.
No, leave it all in.
I know. I was
You will
going
be.
to.
You're gonna have to listen to it. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I think it's time to wrap up.
I think it is. All right. Well, thank you to our guest
Yes,
for
thank you for having
being
me.
on. Yeah. And Kevin and I are now plastered because we've been drinking whiskey the entire time. Thank you
Yeah.
for listening. Follow us on Instagram at new496 and fax us at new496@gmail.com.
That's the address.
Yep. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Goodbye.